Et pourquoi au Cameroun, j'ai le sentiment qu'on prie que le président meurt?
Do you understand me?
Yes.
For over 40 years, one man has ruled Cameroon. He is rarely seen, he hardly ever speaks. And yet, he governs. Paul Biya, now 92 years old, 43 of those spent at the helm of Cameroon, is set to seek an 8th term in office this coming October 12th. Should he succeed, he could remain in power until the age of 99. He is not only one of the world's oldest heads of state, but also one of its most enduring, so much so that in 2017, the French newspaper Libération ranked him 3rd among the longest-serving leaders. His longevity is so remarkable that some now question whether he is still truly in control. 3 weeks before the presidential election, his planned stay on September 21st in Geneva, Switzerland, is surprising, as the campaign begins in a week. A regular at the Intercontinental Hotel, he is a loyal guest there. How has he managed to stay in power for so long? Is he still genuinely at the helm of the state? And above all, what becomes of a country where political transition becomes a mere illusion and those in power appear determined to hold on to it indefinitely? Stay with us to explore the ins and outs of this crucial question. Welcome to We Emerge, the best place to get inspired and make a difference. If you haven't subscribed yet, you can do so by clicking the subscribe button. Let's get started. He has been in power for what feels like an eternity. At the head of Cameroon, a Central African nation of 30 million inhabitants, vast and resource-rich, with a land area nearly equivalent to that of Spain, Paul Biya has presided over 40 years, marked by steady decline, an unending Anglophone conflict, a population growing poorer, a crumbling economy, and a state that has grown increasingly repressive and unaccountable.
Il s'agit pour nous d'un rétrécissement de l'espace civique au Cameroun et un recul très grave des libertés publiques.
Paul Biya did not seize power by force, but rather rose through backroom maneuvering and an ambiguous transition. In November 1982, he succeeded Ahmadou Ahidjo, a northern Muslim president who officially stepped down for health reasons. However, this resignation concealed a calculated effort to retain control over the machinery of state by installing a successor seen as pliable. Despite warnings from his inner circle, Ahidjo chose to transfer power to Paul Biya, a Christian from the south who had been prime minister since 1975, believing he could contain his influence by retaining the presidency of the ruling party, the UNC. This intention is highlighted in Jean-François Bayard's article, The Cameroonian Political Society, 1982 to 1986, on pages 11 and 12, where he writes, announcing his resignation on November 4, 1982, Mr. Ahidjo was urged by a delegation from the Central Committee, which included Mr. Biya, to retain the national presidency of the UNC. The barons who initiated this move had a clear goal: to limit the power of the new president, deprive him of control over the party, and keep open the nomination of the presidential candidate for the 1985 election. It is even said in Cameroon, with some plausibility, that this plan was premeditated by Mr. Ahidjo, who sought to orchestrate a pseudo-succession in favor of the South, only to eventually install his true heir in a second phase. But Biya quickly severed this subordinate relationship, as illustrated on page 13 of the same article. When Mr. Ahidjo tried to regain control over his creation, it slipped from his grasp. The new president wasted no time in asserting his desire to govern alone, a move that infuriated Ahidjo. Fearing for his own security, Biya then consolidated his grip on power by dismissing his prime minister and cabinet members loyal to Ahidjo. He rewrote the constitution to eliminate the office of prime minister, removed northerners from positions of influence, and installed loyalists in key roles, gradually concentrating all authority in his hands. The result was a Cold War between the two presidents. In April 1984, an attempted coup d'etat by soldiers loyal to Ahidjo was crushed in bloodshed. 71 deaths, according to official sources, over 500, according to foreign observers. Biya emerged from the crisis stronger than ever. From that point on, Paul Biya officially became the strongman of Cameroon, ruling with an iron fist. The president is elected by popular vote for 7-year terms. In 2008, he eliminated the 2-term limit and has since won election after election, often with more than 70% of the vote. Since then, no electoral contest has been able to unseat him. He has survived multiple coup attempts, political uprisings, a deadly Anglophone crisis, and the relentless passage of time itself. In 2015, when asked about his longevity during a state visit by French President François Hollande, Paul Biya, then 82, summed up his reign with a now iconic phrase, "One does not last in power because one wants to, but because one can."
Monsieur, je vous remercie. Je commencerai par dire que ne dure pas au pouvoir qui veut, mais dure qui peut.
I did not come to power through dictatorial means. I have always been elected by the people, he added. His political longevity owes far less to popular will than to his absolute command of the levers of power, his skillful manipulation of ethno-political balances, and a regime meticulously crafted in his image. Paul Biya's grip on power for over 4 decades is no accident. It is the result of a relentless and calculated strategy. Biya did not seize power, he tamed it. Long before becoming president, he climbed every rung of the political ladder, occupying all the key strategic positions before being propelled to the top office. 1962, Special Advisor at the Presidency. 1968, Director of the Civil Cabinet. 1975, Prime Minister. In other words, Biya was intimately familiar with the system well before assuming control. As Gaga Harman Adji, former minister and president of the ADD party, explained on the BBC, Biya went through every level of the presidential structure, which allowed him to master the dossiers that reached the presidency, and more importantly, to master the state apparatus itself. This institutional knowledge gave him a critical advantage. He understood the machinery of power because he had grown within it. Biya also came to power at a pivotal moment in Cameroon's history, a time when peace was becoming a central national value. According to political scientist Stéphane Akoa, Biya quickly positioned himself as the man of stability, the one who could preserve peace in a country still haunted by the traumas of war, notably the repression of nationalist UPC fighters like Ruben Umniobe during the brutal counter-insurgency campaigns of the 1960s. In such a climate, the people preferred peace over uncertain change, and Biya understood this immediately. He made stability the cornerstone of his legitimacy. His ascent was thus not only administrative but symbolic. He embodied continuity and reassurance. Once in office, Biya established a unique style of governance, hyper-centralization, combined with controlled absence. He speaks rarely. Delegates almost everything, except the essentials. In 1990, multi-party politics was reintroduced, but in reality, it was little more than a facade. Cameroon's electoral system is structurally designed to entrench the incumbent president. The head of state is elected through a single-round, first-past-the-post system for a 7-year term, with no term limits. In practical terms, this means a president only needs a relative majority, however slim, to win. That's exactly what happened in 1992, when Anglophone opposition leader John Fruendi came close to victory with 35.9% of the vote against 39.9% for Biya. A narrow margin, but sufficient under this system. As opposition leader, Cabral Libi noted on the BBC, Mr. Biya's longevity is primarily due to this electoral framework, tailor-made since 1992 to ensure his indefinite hold on power. In a 2-round system, opposition parties could have united against him in the runoff, but with a single round, they remain divided and lose every time. Despite repeated criticism and calls to reform this blatantly unfair electoral code, nothing has changed. Elections come and go, but offer little surprise. 2004, Biya wins with over 70.9% of the vote, 2011, 78%, after abolishing term limits in 2008, 2018, 71.28% against Maurice Kamto. Figures like these point to a tightly controlled electoral process. Elections? A mere formality, nothing more. But that's not the whole story. Biya also benefits enormously from the deep fragmentation of the opposition. In 1992, Fruendi succeeded in rallying several parties behind him. Since then, unity has disintegrated. Today, the opposition is scattered, incapable of forming a common front. Biya's party, the Cameroon People's Democratic Movement, CPDM, formerly the Cameroonian National Union until 1985, reigns supreme. It controls over 80% of the National Assembly, the Senate, and the regional councils, effectively neutralizing any counterbalance. Worse still, the proliferation of micro-parties, more than 300 officially registered, has sown confusion and division. Some of these parties are even suspected of being created or covertly financed by the ruling regime itself, precisely to weaken any genuine alternative. Paul Biya has also skillfully navigated the murky waters of international relations, particularly with the former colonial power, France, where other African heads of state were overthrown after challenging colonial-era agreements. Biya has chosen a different path. He negotiates slowly, cautiously, discreetly. He has played a more subtle card, the long game. There are many examples. While presidents like Laurent Gbagbo were ousted militarily for opposing French positions, Biya has patiently renegotiated. The defense agreement with France was revised first in 1974, then again in 2009, with clauses far more favorable to Cameroon. As noted by Jeune Afrique in 2009, unlike previous agreements, part of which had remained secret, this new version no longer includes a clause obliging France to provide military protection in the event of external aggression against Cameroon, according to a diplomat. The port of Douala, long managed by the French group Bolloré, was renationalized in 2019, following the expiration of the concession contract, a strategic decision symbolizing a reclaiming of economic sovereignty. In other words, Cameroon has never been, in Biya's own words, anyone's private hunting ground. He has skillfully balanced the influence of global powers, France, China, the United States, Russia, Morocco, South Africa, to diversify partnerships and strengthen national autonomy. Today, the question is no longer just, why has Paul Biya stayed in power so long, but rather, is he still truly in charge? In recent years, Biya has all but vanished from public life. As his former Minister of Employment, Issa Chiroma Bakari, said in an interview with Brut, Paul Biya is invisible.
La deuxième observation, le président de la République nous donne l'impression d'être distant. C'est à croire que le pouvoir a cessé de lui procurer le plaisir, l'honneur de présider aux destinées de notre nation.
For several years now, Biya has spent extended periods abroad, most often in Switzerland, at Geneva's Intercontinental Hotel, far removed from the realities of his country. And when he returns, silence is the norm. Few speeches, rare public appearances, no press conferences, no debates, only presidential decrees and carefully curated posts on social media. Some observers speak of phantom governance, as highlighted in an article by Courier International. Others suspect a close inner circle now makes the real decisions, while the president has become an almost mystical figure, present through his absence. This view is echoed by Minister Issa Chiroma Bakari, who claims the Cameroonian government is now an instrument in the hands of occult powers.
Le gouvernement est aujourd'hui un instrument au service des puissances occultes. Alors ce pouvoir occulte, comme j'en ai parlé tout à l'heure, c'est aussi divisé en deux clans. Il y a un clan qui appartient à telle famille, à telle caste, et l'autre clan qui appartient aussi à telle autre famille, à telle enseigne que ce pouvoir, relevant de la souveraineté du peuple, se trouve donc accaparé par ces deux groupes qui se battent pour le triomphe de leurs intérêts.
To go even further, Fridolin Nki, a Cameroonian writer, political commentator, and philosopher, refers in an international interview to the new masters of power in Cameroon.
Et vraiment, je vous prie de me laisser dire ce que je vais dire. Ce pays actuel n'est pas gouverné par Biya. Ce pays est gouverné par deux pères de sang et un gourou.
Power has become impersonal, distant, almost immortal. In 2024, the government went so far as to ban the media from discussing the president's health. This came after it vigorously denied alarming rumors about Paul Biya's condition. According to Le Monde, a government notice stated, "The head of state is the foremost institution of the republic, and any discussion of his health falls under the scope of national security," reads the note signed by Paul Biya, Minister of Territorial Administration. Any media debate on the president's state of health is therefore formally prohibited, it continues, and any offenders will be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. If Biya speaks little, his apparatus speaks for him. Ministers, governors, and security forces ensure continuity, but this stability is only surface deep. Behind the gilded halls of power, the system is frozen. The opposition is silenced. The military remains loyal. According to Hans de Marie Hoengoop, a researcher at the International Crisis Group, ICG, Paul Biya has established a subtle balance of power between the various branches of the armed forces. No one can move an active unit without the president's approval. Titus Edzoa, a former close ally of Biya and Secretary General of the Presidency between 1994 and 1996, and a multiple-time minister, told AFP, "If you try to go against Biya, you are crushed." Cameroonian youth have never known another president.
Moi, je suis né en 88, je n'ai pas connu son excellence Biya au pouvoir et j'aimerais connaître un autre président.
What happens tomorrow if Paul Biya suddenly disappears? Is Cameroon prepared for a post-Biya era? Nothing is less certain. There is no official succession plan, no designated heir, and a constitution that could either block everything or trigger everything. In Cameroon, some see the possibility of another presidential term for Biya as far from desirable. Several Cameroonian bishops have spoken out, sharply criticizing his government and stating that he has turned a beautiful country into a place of despair and misery. Yet others continue to believe in the president's ability to lead until the age of 99. Including Jean de Dieu Momo, Minister Delegate at the Ministry of Justice and President of the PADDEC party. Speaking on Naja TV, he stated, "He doesn't drive caterpillars, he doesn't drive trucks, he doesn't break rocks. You can see for yourself. He has good eyes, strong legs, and a sharp mind."
Il se repose pourquoi? Oh, il a une charge. Quand on a une charge de porter le Cameroun, on n'a pas le droit au repos. Il n'a pas le droit, ce serait de la haute trahison. Il est président parce que le bon Dieu a voulu qu'il soit président. Pourquoi vous dites qu'en Afrique, lorsqu'un vieillard meurt, c'est une bibliothèque qui se brûle? C'est parce que le vieillard a atteint un sommet de la sagesse que nous prions tous pour qu'il ne meure pas.
Still, criticism continues to mount regarding Cameroon's current state. Despite its vast natural resources, oil, gas, minerals, and agricultural products, the country is facing severe economic challenges. As of 2024, nearly 1/4 of the population lives below the poverty line. Corruption remains rampant, and Transparency International ranked Cameroon 140 out of 180 countries in its 2023 index. For both public opinion and the international press, one feeling has persisted since October 2018. Nothing is moving. Paul Biya was deeply marked by the 1984 coup attempt and the 1992 presidential election, which he nearly lost. Each time, he tightened his grip even further, so much so that the upcoming October 12th, 2025 election seems likely to be a mere formality, potentially with an 80% win, as suggested again by Minister Jean de Dieu Momo. After more than 4 decades in power, one thing is certain. Paul Biya is no longer just a president. He is a system, a method, almost a national enigma. He has weathered many crises, but today, as his silence grows louder than his words, one question haunts Cameroon. What will happen the day this immortal power finally has to step aside? Will the system survive without him? This year, on October 12, 2025, the presidential election will take place, a fateful event that could reveal much about the future of this nation. Thank you for watching this video all the way through. If it taught you something or made you reflect, feel free to share it and let us know in the comments. Do you believe Paul Biya is still truly in charge? Or has power already shifted hands without anyone admitting it? See you very soon on We Emerge for more political stories that illuminate today and tomorrow.